the most handsome Hab of all time. Missing some off-air discussion.
Alsner.
He was talking about Carl Alsner and the Mount Rushmore of handsome Habs in the history of the Canadian storied organization. Hello and happy Friday. Welcome to the start of the Montreal long weekend. Happy Thanksgiving weekend to everybody that celebrates. Thank you for celebrating with us. Everybody cool today? Everybody cool today in the aftermath of the Montreal Canadiens going to Motown to put a beat down on the Detroit Red Wings? There is Marco D'Amico. I am Sean Starr. We're brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. Maybe something to start thinking about the holidays. Maybe you want to, like the D'Amicos, they love to do theme parties. Maybe you want some theme t-shirts, some theme hoodies. I hope you get it at cheapesttshirts.ca. You won't find better quality at the cheapest prices available. It's proudly Canadian owned with fast shipping and no minimum orders, unbeatable prices. Get yours today at cheapesttshirts.ca. Shout out to our friends at McLean's, another slam night for the Canadiens. A big win in Detroit. You can find them at 1210 Peel Street. It is the home away from home for the Montreal Canadiens and Starr and D'Amico. We will be there October 22nd. And as always, Catherine Prince with a K, catherineprince.ca if you're looking to buy or sell your house. Someone who's been in the real estate game for over 2 decades. And you just want an evaluation on your house. Maybe you want to put it on the market. Catherine Prince with a K, catherineprince.ca. Let's get going, Marco D'Amico. How about those Montreal Canadiens? I got to tell you, man. Like, even though I know we did our live after they lost in Toronto with those 2 empty netters in a 5-2 final, I really like the way this team has started the season. They didn't want to start slow, and they have not been a slow team. Maybe out of the gate a little bit, but man, they have recovered from that, and they've impressed me, Marco. Your impressions after 6 periods?
You see, I found the Canadiens opportunistic last night, whereas I found the Toronto Maple Leafs opportunistic on Wednesday, right? And in terms of the 5-on-5 opportunities, I felt like the Canadiens, I wouldn't say got lucky. I think they took advantage of a situation when it came to Detroit's goaltending. I find it a little ironic, in fact, that Steve Yzerman said that all they really needed was to find some saves, make a big summer trade for John Gibson, and to find no saves. So very unfortunate there. But what I will say, when we look at what really worked for the Canadiens, the Brendan Gallagher, Zachary Bolduc combo.
Correct.
It's almost irrelevant that Kirby Dach played on that line. He's just trying to find his feet right now. So I'm willing to give him some time. But Brendan Gallagher and Zachary Bolduc together is just magic.
Correct.
On the ice. They're just that gritty, no nonsense, straight to the net kind of style that the Montreal Canadiens really kind of lacked. And this goes into the strategy of going to get a guy like Zachary Bolduc in the Logan Mailloux trade that happened in the summer, was because he really fits a need that only really a guy like Brendan Gallagher or Josh Anderson filled for the Montreal Canadiens. Well, now you have a guy with a scoring touch, with skill, that's 22 years old and is just going to continue to get better. So I was really happy to see that. And then I'm going to go back to it because I talked about it in the Leafs game. I'm going to talk about it again, but the Matheson-Dobson pairing,
man,
I cannot express, I was not a fan of this pairing. I mean, there's a mea culpa on my end. I was not a fan of this pairing at the moment they were put together. I see the vision now. How many egregious turnovers have we seen from Mike Matheson over the last 2 games?
Yeah, none.
Why?
Compared to last year? Yes.
Exactly. Why?
Yes.
Because he's not the one taking care of the breakouts by himself anymore.
Correct.
And I think that is massive for Mike Matheson, because if you can limit those defensive mistakes, he is a bona fide top-end defenseman. And it really goes to show you the value of Noah Dobson isn't only in the play of Noah Dobson, but how he complements other players. If you look at the Canadiens last night, yes, they got dominated in possession at 5-on-5, especially as the game went on, but that's normal on a back-to-back, especially in the third period. But I found that Noah Dobson was really quick when it came to zone exits, calmed the game down. I think he only got beat one-on-one maybe once or twice, and they were both in the third period when the legs were definitely lost there. But that pairing set the tone in terms of transition for this team. Quick breakouts, very limited time in the offensive zone, boxed out the opposition really quick on the get-go. Just, I found, to me, just elite puck moving pairing, which the Canadiens have not had probably since the days of Markov and Subban.
Well, that's it. Like, and it was funny too, right? It's amazing what a good partner can do for your own game, to your point about Mike Matheson. And this stands out, right? It stood out all night. Look at the ice time. And granted, it's the second game of a back-to-back. The Canadiens open up the season with 3 road games in 4 nights and another home opener for the Chicago Blackhawks, this one on Saturday night. Mike Matheson, 20 minutes and 22 seconds. Arbor Jacki, 15:37, a nice little bump up from his 11 minutes on Wednesday in Toronto. Alex Carrier, just over 17. Noah Dobson, 19:50. Caden Gooley, 20:46. I mean, I talked a lot about this in terms of where this team is at and, finding the next level. And I chose to put a little bit on Martin St. Louis, less experimentation, more legitimate roles, more confirmed roles. And I love the fact that the ice time was evenly distributed. And how about this? Nick Suzuki, 15:46. Let's talk about the depth shining through for the Montreal Canadiens, where, you and I spent all season covering this team, knowing that it was the Nick Suzuki line. If they were going, there was a good chance the Canadiens could win. Now we've seen Zachary Bolduc, who in my opinion was robbed of a 2-goal performance. Oliver Kapanen scores 2 goals in 2 nights. Same for Bolduc, but the depth of this team has been very impressive after 2 games.
Yeah, I think that is definitely going to be something that continues to well, then join us there, Mr. Steve, on the 22nd of October as we do our live show. I think one of the things that I appreciated, yes, the depth for sure. I feel like you're seeing line drivers that you wouldn't have normally seen, and I think this is key. I thought that Ivan Demidov played a good game yesterday. Nothing crazy, but a good game. I mean, that pass on the Kapanen goal, the Kapanen goal, depending on how you want to call it, was just fantastic. Just complete, almost 3-zone pass. Yeah. And to me, like, elite play in that regard. You're just finding his teammates, learning how to use his body. I think he's getting used to it, as well. And so I thought that line worked well together. I was iffy on the role of Alex Newhook on that line. I found that sometimes his feet move quicker than his hands and vice versa. But on that play, he was able to really kind of execute that 2-on-1 to perfection. And Oliver Kapanen, we talked about this in the preseason, right? More of a goal-scoring center than a playmaking center. And actually, my father-in-law is on his way to Victoria, BC right now, Nicholas.
Beautiful part of Canada.
Beautiful part of Canada. Yeah. Beautiful BC. And, when you look at the way the Kapanen's able to finish, pun intended, I think that he has that quality that could make him a trigger man for a guy like Ivan Demidov. We saw it against the Leafs. There was one opportunity where the 2 came flying down the right flank, and he just whiffed on the shot. If those 2 can get a little bit more of the synergy going from a timing perspective, I think that line can be very dangerous as well. And you know who looks really good with the fact that Oliver Kapanen is playing the way he is? Grant McCagg, because he called Oliver Kapanen being the second line center, and so far he has been. Obviously, he has 2 games. Come talk to me in December when a lot of these players hit walls, but he has looked very good the first 2 games. So kudos to Grant McCagg on that one.
Marco, fair. Jakub Dobes has allowed 1 goal so far, preseason through regular season. I was talking with RDS's Mark Denis the other day. We were going over Sam Montembeault's performance in Toronto, and it's not often I see Montembeault like sliding out of the blue paint, and trying to make a stop. Normally, I find him structurally kind of sound. And listen, I don't want to come across as a goalie whisperer. I find it's a very difficult position to handicap, but it's something that I noticed, and I asked Mark about it, and he more or less thought the same thing. And then I'm watching Jakub Dobes. Man, I love his aggressiveness. I love how angled he is. I love when he goes post to post. He almost knocks the goalie off the goal off the pegs because his skate is slamming into it as he goes side to side. Listen, I'm not stirring up a goalie controversy, but maybe I am. No. I would go back to Dobes on Saturday night. The home opener is still Monty's game against Seattle next week, but I'd like to see Dobes back in there. I just love how aggressive he is, and I think the team follows that. That's what I read into last night.
I think he played phenomenally. I think he covered his angles quite well. I think he challenged the opposition quite well. Got lucky on a few situations where
a couple of posts there.
A couple of posts.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, give them a lot of love after that play. But I think when you look at the way that he attacks the play, right? And this is different from a goalie's perspective, but I've been around a lot of goalies in my life, so that psyche is always fun to unpack a little bit. He plays the percentages so well, and his explosivity is so good that the tracking, I wouldn't go that far, Mavs. The tracking is just excellent in what he does. The issue that he had, and we just spoke about it, was he would actually overcommit himself. Like he would be too aggressive to the point where he would slide himself out of position in Laval. Like when we were at games watching the Laval Rocket, we would crack up because in that league, he was able to fix those mistakes. They became a little bit more apparent in the NHL last year. And I'm happy to see that he's kind of dialed it down and has controlled explosivity when he like pops out of his net to cover more of it. And good Lord, does that kid cover a lot of the net.
No kidding, man.
But one thing that I enjoy is a lot of goalies, when they do that, they're weaker on their glove hand, right? So it's quicker because you're pushing out your shoulders out, but the glove is still here. So it's easier to score that way. His glove comes out like this because he's just so massive. I find that to be a skill in his structural strategy when it comes to being able to, attack a play and come out of his crease. Whereas a lot of, smaller goalies, for example, you look at the way that a guy like, I was going to say Saros in Nashville, when he comes out, his hands are almost up like this as he comes out. So covers a little bit less around, this area. So you go like 6 or 7 hole. And that's enough technical talk for goaltending, but I'm just to say that Dobes's play to me looks sustainable. And I think he's going to be a very good backup goalie for the Montreal Canadiens, but I wouldn't go as far as starting a goalie controversy just yet. I would say though.
No. So you say you have no appetite to play him Saturday. Right now you have 0%.
No.
Okay.
No, in fact, if I'm the Montreal Canadiens, I don't think that Montembeault played a bad game against the Leafs, but I'd want him to get into another game and really get going, right? Because you don't want to get into a situation where, it starts being mind games.
Yes.
It's the middle of October. There's 2 back-to-back situations this month. They're both – I'd be surprised if Dobes doesn't get – at least 4 starts in this month. I think there's 11, 12 games. Like, he'll be fine. So I'm sure he'll get his number of starts, especially once they get out west. They have that Calgary, Edmonton back-to-back situation.
Exactly.
He'll get in there, and I'd be very, very intrigued to see if they give Edmonton to Dobes. That would be fun.
That would be fun. 9 games left in October. They play at Chicago on Saturday. Then the Habs are home for 4 in a row: Seattle, Nashville, New York Rangers, and the Buffalo Sabres. If I can for a second, I want to move around the NHL for a minute because the Canadiens, played Toronto, fun game, lose. Then they go to Detroit, a team that you and I had talked about. Who are the Red Wings going to be this year? Obviously, trying to make up big ground. They got some nice young pieces there. And then we saw, the Ottawa Senators play a fantastic game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Jake Sanderson with an unbelievable setup that results in an Ottawa goal. They win 5-4. Buffalo loses in a shutout to the New York Rangers. To me, in the very early goings here, Ottawa's going to be a problem. Like Ottawa's here, Ottawa's for real, and they're going to be a problem. Like if anybody in the chat was thinking at the beginning of the season, and again, everything in the context of 2 games being played for Montreal, that if you're thinking top 3 in the Atlantic Division, in whatever order you think the top 3 are going to be, and if you think Montreal is going to be there, Ottawa is legitimate, man, and their depth down the middle is very good. Early impressions for the teams around Montreal, brother.
I don't think their defense is going to hold, however. I think it's basically Jake Sanderson on an island by himself. I'm not super fond of Thomas Chabot. I didn't necessarily think he had the greatest game yesterday either. Yeah. You can't play rope-a-dope hockey. You can't be winning games 6-5 all the time. You're going to have to bring it down defensively, and that's going to become a little bit more apparent as you get later into the season. Obviously, it's the beginning of the season. Go nuts, right? Score as many goals as you want. I love 7-6 games. Believe me. Coaches hate it, but fans and media adore it. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to write about, etc. So, I mean, I think they're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive when it comes to how they play defensively and tighten that up. And I think it speaks to, and I think I've been on the record saying this before, I just don't feel like they have top 3 in the division defense. But then again, neither does the Toronto Maple Leafs. And
Agreed.
I still think they're going to finish top 3 because their offense makes up for it.
Correct.
I don't think that they have the offense that can necessarily consistently make up for their defense unless they shore it up from a systemic perspective.
I don't know about you, but I find myself curious, whenever the Montreal Canadiens, even in the past under previous regimes, they make deals, significant NHL player for player deals, right? I'm the type of fan that I like to keep tabs on who's doing what and how are they doing incorporated in a new team. The St. Louis Blues lose in a shutout last night. Logan Mailloux, 14 minutes and change, a -2. And obviously the early returns are extremely tilted in favor of the Canadiens. The way Zachary Bolduc has played, how he was incorporated. For those, the regular viewers, listeners of this channel knew at the time and listen, we'll see. But I wasn't in favor of moving Logan Mailloux. I liked what he was maybe able to bring to the NHL with his physicality, his team toughness, and everything else. But what was it about the Blues that do you think said, okay, we're ready to make this deal. We're ready to make this transaction. Bolduc scored, remember this, Bolduc scored 13 goals in the final 25-26 games for the Blues season as they were running for a playoff spot. And obviously they saw something in this guy, and so did Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon. They pulled the trigger. Why do you think the Blues made this move ultimately? What did they see in Bolduc, and what did they see in Logan Mailloux?
Well, I think drafting a guy like Justin Carbonneau, having Jimmy Snuggerud, and a plethora of other young wingers coming up, I think that they identified an organizational weakness. Right now, they only have Adam Jiricek coming through as a potential top 4 right shot D, and they needed one to start playing sooner than later because if you look at the defense in St. Louis, Justin Falk is in his 30s, mid-30s. Colton Parayko is in his 30s. Cam Fowler, even though he just got extended, is in his 30s. Like, you can't depend on just Philip Broberg to bring in like the next generation of defensemen. You need to start funneling those guys in now. And the toughest position to fill is a young right shot defenseman. And this goes back to what we were talking about in the summer when I said he absolutely, Logan Mailloux absolutely has that value that you would be willing to throw a top 6 winger at to go and get. And I think, it's normal that the Montreal Canadiens are going to be getting more bang for their buck early on. It's easier for a young winger, especially one with a full NHL season behind him, to come in and look better. But that's a credit to Zachary Bolduc. It goes with his style. It goes with the way that the Montreal Canadiens envisioned his utilization. It goes with a bunch of things. And I think Brendan Gallagher has done a really good job of helping him get into the lineup and getting comfortable and playing the same way and following him along on the ice. So the two always look dangerous together. When it comes to Logan Mailloux, I always say this, it's very difficult to get your start in the NHL and not, look out of place here and there. It requires a level of stability in your defensive game that a guy like Mailloux didn't necessarily have at the NHL level. He started showing it in the American Hockey League. So before anyone starts running around saying the Canadiens won the trade, I would still give it a little bit of time. Defensemen take longer, obviously. And even if he becomes a mediocre number 4 right shot defenseman, that's still good value for a team like St. Louis, because most teams spend, top half of the first round pick to draft a player like that, like the Blues did with Adam Jiricek. So
totally.
To me, I think it's okay that he shows a little bit of difficulty. Now, how does he improve from this? And that's where I believe a guy like Jim Montgomery, who is the head coach of the St. Louis Blues, is going to be able to help Logan Mailloux a lot, because he's a details and structure style coach, but a new age coach that communicates very well.
That's Marco D'Amico. I'm Sean Starr. Thank you so much for being a part of our morning. The morning after, the Montreal Canadiens go to Detroit and put a beatdown on the Red Wings in a 5-1 final to get to 1-1 on the season, answering back from a 5-2 loss to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And again, if you missed the opener, I really like the depth that we've seen so far. I like the speed. I like the game management, but not everything has been fantastic in my point of view, and there's always room for improvement, which takes me into the next talking point. Before I get that, Marco has his finger up, indicating he'd like to say something.
Narrating my sentiment. I just want to spend before we start talking about what the Canadiens need to improve.
Yeah.
I really would like, because I've talked about this on the show a little bit, and I always like to circle back on this stuff. Juraj Slafkovsky had himself a game.
Yes.
Just physical. Like, remember when we talked about mean Slav?
Yes.
He was mean Slav last night.
Well, he got that in the corner there. A couple of little rapid punches there.
Just more aggressive.
Yeah.
Making those hits, creating space, attacking the net. He could have had a couple last night as well. Scored on that rebound on the power play. Finally, a power play goal. That we're probably going to talk about this in a second. But I just felt like that's the kind of Slafkovsky that the Canadiens are going to need for 82 games and into the playoffs.
Well said.
If they're expecting that first line, which hasn't necessarily needed to show off that much off the bat, but that first line, I found Slafkovsky was the better player on that first line last night, and he drove to the net, and that's the kind of play that I feel will help him consistently put up points from the start of the season to the end of it.
Well, he's taken a much more mature approach. It's not me with my insight. It's him saying that, talking about the summer, how he was a rink rat, a gym rat, taking it very seriously. And that's what we talk about, I think, when we make observations around the Canadiens, that this is a very tight team. I don't think it was a coincidence that the core group of players stayed here this summer, trained, went to concerts, went for nice dinners. Caden Gooley's texting Zach Bolduc, who's home in Quebec City, saying, hey, come on over. We're going to Oshiaga. We're going to Lasso. You're part of this. Let's go. And next thing you know, we're seeing some early dividends pay off with some of these guys playing well. Mike Matheson and Noah Dobson hanging out together, driving to the golf course together, getting to know one another. And you see the tandem paying early dividends after 2 games, right? And I'm glad you brought up Juraj Slafkovsky, who had 10 shot attempts on Wednesday in Toronto, scores the Canadiens' first power play goal. And this to me right away is, and I get everything's earned, and Ivan Demidov, was playing less than 13 minutes a game, or 13-21, whatever it was in Toronto, less than 13 in the win in Detroit. Like, defensively, there's a lot of room left for him to grow into that skill set. But when he's out there on the power play, right off the hop, and I know it's only 6 periods and a few power plays that we've seen, but when they play perimeter hockey, their power play is not good at all. And when you saw in the first period, when the second wave finally got on, and you get someone down the middle, there was a nice deflection there. And right away, when they were able to get inside the middle, they finally look a little bit threatening, right? Where's Zach Bolduc on the deflection on the carry goal, getting to the front of the net? I'd love them to get back to Slafkovsky in front of the net. Demidov on those magic hands and that vision at 19 years of age. Like, I know it's only 2 games, but part of me is like, okay, Saturday night, got to see that change.
I have been on the diamond formation for a while.
Yeah.
You know this. We talked about it yesterday, right? So I won't bore the fans with more of this, but I believe that the Montreal Canadiens would have an elite first wave of the power play.
Yeah.
If they went back to Caulfield on the right, on the left, Demidov on the right, Hutson at the top, Suzuki in the middle, and Slafkovsky in front of the net. And I feel like you would optimize every single player's ability while giving Laine Hutson the opportunity to have more than one option to shoot. And I think having Bolduc on the second wave would actually be an insurance policy for a guy like Patrick Laine, and you're able to move Kirby Dach to the right circle, where he could then be the one to try and set up those passing lanes, because you'd have Dobson, Bolduc, and Laine that would be able to come in and do that. If the Canadiens feel they continue to need to have Brendan Gallagher on that power play, which, I mean, I can't say anything. The start of the season has been excellent, so power
I'm
to
not
him.
moving that. Correct.
Exactly. So you have 2 puck retrievers on that power play to compensate for the lack of mobility that comes from Laine, And then you also have Noah Dobson that could patrol the blue line and does a really good job of calming stuff down. I feel like that would be a better combination. I don't think that putting Kirby Dach in the bumper is helping him in any way, shape, or form. The man does not have he doesn't have the motion yet that I feel would be relevant to put him in a shooting perspective. He should be primarily used in a playmaking perspective. Not only will he get more puck touches and get more comfortable in the game faster, but you utilizing his strengths, right? Where he's able to roam up and down the right side of the boards and make plays. And again, I stress this, but right shot passer to a right shot passer, be it, a guy like Laine on the far end or Dobson at the point, you have more chances of being able to put a spin on that pass that would assist in doing a one-time shot far quicker.
Fair. I just, to me, I think they need to divvy up the skill. I think they need to put a little bit more simple north-south players and mix it up on both waves of the power play. And that takes me to Patrik Laine. Like, I know, again, the caveat, and I'm so repetitive today, it's 6 periods, but he had a one-on-one opportunity. He let a wrist shot go, missed the target, played, 70 seconds on the power play yesterday. I just don't know. I don't know what's missing from his game. Obviously 5-on-5, his decision-making seems slow to me after 6 periods and what I've seen so far in Toronto and Detroit. I just don't know what the coaching staff is going to be able to do in order to get more out of this guy. Is this a hot take to say maybe get Caulfield off that first wave and just put Laine there and let him rip shots, man? Let him rip shots again and again and again, because it's what he does. And he keeps scoring from there. So what else are you going to do? He's 8.7 on the cap, and he doesn't play 5-on-5 well. His decision-making is slow. And the one thing he does at an elite level, he's not getting enough chances to do it.
Yeah, the Canadiens have $5.5 million in cap space. I really don't feel like Laine's salary is a reason to play him in a situation that I believe he hasn't earned yet. Yes, he's fantastic on the power play. My only confusion is if you're going to remove him from the top wave, I think he's been fantastic at 5-on-5, but I just don't see the reasoning of Zachary Bolduc in that situation, especially you look at yesterday's goal.
Yeah.
How did that go in? It was Slafkovsky that jumped on the Caulfield rebound.
100%.
Right? Yeah. And where was Slafkovsky? Right in front of the net. So
that's what I'm saying. I know.
That to me is where I'm getting at. You have too much of the same. You would only be putting Bolduc there if you didn't feel like Suzuki would be good enough to take that shot, right? And I feel like we're getting away from what made that first power play wave dynamic, is having Suzuki in the middle of it, being, it's almost like playing total football, right? He's your centerpiece, right? And everybody kind of goes through him to get to, the offensive opportunities. And I feel like that's exactly what they're getting away from by putting a shooter, a sole shooter in Zachary Bolduc in that situation. So there's that. When it comes to Patrik Laine, I thought he was actually playing better at 5-on-5 than we've seen him in a long while. I thought the effort was there. I thought the back checking was there. I thought he was playing well. It's just, unfortunately, the speed of execution is always going to catch up to him because he just, and I will state this, doesn't have the legs anymore to be able to do what he did without the habits in place.
Yes.
To cover for some of the other warts. So Martin St. Louis is going to work with him to try and cover those warts and try to improve in those aspects. And you've seen a dedication from him in being able to do so. But I understand fans that are saying, to the detriment of who, right? Why does he need to be put on a fourth line, which would otherwise be used as a shutdown line?
Yeah.
With Gallagher on it. Now you've handicapped that, and it's the top line that has to be doing the shutting down. That to me is counterintuitive, just to try and get one player to go. But I will say this: I don't think he played bad last night. I don't think he played bad. I just feel like if you're going to utilize him on the power play, you need to optimize those 2 power plays to be specific identities, right? And I feel like right now neither of them have an identity. If
that's fair.
Demidov on the top, and you put Bolduc on the bottom, then the top one becomes a diamond, and the bottom becomes more of an umbrella. And at that point, you can execute better. In my 2 cents. I'm not the coach.
But, just to keep on Patrik Laine for a second, it's like he had no shots on goal yesterday. So I'm not here to talk about Saturday night. mixing and matching lines, because like in any other debate you have about teams in the standings or changing a lineup, I mean, I like what I've seen from the top line, and I actually like his line mates. I thought Jake Evans played a hell of a game. Good back checking, big body checks, big in the face-off circle, especially on a night when the Canadiens got cracked in Toronto. Nice bounce back in the face-off circle. Alex Newhook was efficient too in that category. I think everybody is in their rightful chair after 2 games. Patrick Laine is still my question mark, because again, if you're not asking this guy to fire pucks and he fires pucks at such an elite level, then what role does he have on this team? I don't mean to, pick on the guy, but just trying to find a spot where you can maximize the value and what he does very well. As you saw last year, he scored 20 goals. I stand by it. They don't make the playoffs if not for his contribution there. So you got to figure out a way to get this guy involved somehow. You got to get him to fire pucks.
I understand, but at the detriment of who? I continue to say that, right? Because you got other priorities as an NHL coach, but you want to get a guy going, and I respect that. But at the same time, you can get him going if you utilize all of your power play elements optimally. I don't think it's bumping Caulfield out of the left circle and putting him there that's necessarily going to do that. But at the same time, the chemistry between Demidov, Laine Hutson, and Patrick Laine is undeniable.
Exactly.
So, that is a conversation to have.
Well, but maybe Gallagher loses his spot on the second power play. Maybe he loses his spot on the second power play, and it opens up an opportunity. If you want to put Laine back on the first wave, you put Caulfield back on the second wave, and you can mix and match there. I don't know. But you got to get him going.
I don't know that you could separate Caulfield, Suzuki from each other on a power play wave. The familiarity is too there. To separate them would be a loss of chemistry that I feel the Canadiens have benefited from over the last couple of years that I don't know that it would necessarily help. And I feel like, we keep thinking about Caulfield as a shooter, but Caulfield is one heck of a playmaker as well in that power play. So to me, again, I just feel like it's not necessarily optimal. Obviously, they're going to need more time to create chemistry with some of these newer players. But just even the second power play wave, I just don't feel like players are in the right spot to be productive.
Yes. Fair.
That's Mark. We'll see what happens at that point. But I think the fair question to ask is, and I'm not going to sit on Patrick Laine. Again, I was going to give him 10, 15 games of evaluation to see how he modifies his game to then kind of have an idea of what they're doing with him.
And what about how Demidov has kind of figured in there? We spoke about him maybe and how maybe he could be used on the power play a little bit more, but what do you see in terms of growing pains for 93 so far after 6 periods? Where his minutes are I think they're managed well personally.
One of the things, and this is something Uri Slafkovsky actually talked to us about. If everybody goes back and looks at last night's game, it's the dump and chase style. He's still got to get used to how to do that from, efficiently. And that's not necessarily a critique. Every rookie that is not used to the North American style comes in and has to get a little used to it. But one of the things that Slafkovsky had really big trouble with when he started was playing that style of game where the puck would be dumped in, and even for a big body, he would go in first to assert body position in front of the puck, and then the first check comes in, and it almost like he recoiled, and it would give the defender a moment to kind of steal the puck and go back the other way. I noticed that with Ivan Demidov, even though he would be the one to initiate contact, he would almost recoil from the contact and then lose the puck.
Yeah.
He has the he has the desire to be physical. That's half the battle, right? We've been talking about this with Uri Slafkovsky. You got to get mean. Well, Ivan Demidov has already accepted the fact that he's got to be physical. Now it's a question of being efficient at being able to take the check to then be able to continue to play in the offensive zone with possession. Once he figures that out, that line is going to be scary. And that's all I got to say. A lot of people are going like, Ivan Demidov should be a point per game scorer. He's only got an assist. Why isn't he doing more? Shabunov already has a goal. Why doesn't our rookie have a goal? Like Harrison Brunicki has a goal in Pittsburgh. Why doesn't Ivan Demidov have, stuff like that? I'm in no way, shape, or form worried because I already feel like he's not being used optimally, and he will eventually push himself in that direction. Yeah. But he, as a winger, if he's going to play his style, he's going to have to learn how to bounce off of checks. And that's totally fine. That's what every rookie in his situation is going to have to go through. because he's got all the talent in the world. Once he figures out how to work around the physicality of the NHL, we won't be talking about Ivan Demidov's ice time, let me tell you.
Thank you, Nathan. It's a process, right? Trying to integrate into a system.
I disagree with this. I disagree with this entirely. Where were you last year? He had no ice time in certain situations. Exactly. And, they're building a system. They have a lot of chairs with current, guys that have occupied it. More on Patrick Laine, get him in his office a bit, says Scotty, ZX. Yeah.
It's definitely not hate. I'm defending Laine. I'm trying to get him out there more often. I'm trying to get him back in his office. So that's how I feel about that. Nick Suzuki had a slower game on Wednesday in Toronto,
and he had 2 assists last night.
2 assists last night, exactly. 14 was a little bit more involved, but the face-off, I know, going up against John Tavares in Toronto, but
even Dylan Larkin in Detroit is no pushover, right? And I think this is what we were talking about before. Suzuki is being asked to shut down. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but in the matchups, especially on the road, their line is being played against the top line. And then in transition, Martin St-Louis would also put him up against their top line. And I find that stunted the top line's offensive ability, and yet they've been actually quite good as a unit, despite Nick Suzuki not standing out as much as you would expect them to. I think when they start playing home games and whenever they decide what the identity of their fourth line is going to be efficiently, I think that'll take a load off of Nick Suzuki, and they will be able to focus more on being offensive. But I definitely noticed that he was a little tired towards the end of the game, so I'll give him that.
I like this about analytics sometimes. The Montreal won the game, but lost every team stat to Detroit. And listen, I don't know what the high danger scoring. I don't know what the high danger scoring chances were. I know the final score was 5-1. I know John Gibson didn't finish the night. What do you got?
High danger scoring chances were 8-1 for Detroit.
8-1, and yet I don't feel like the takeaway was Jakub Dobes stole that game for the Canadiens. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Jakub Dobes had a 2.5 goals saved above expected. So yes, he did.
But it didn't look. It didn't look that way. It didn't look that way to me. And as a matter of fact, I like the way the team finished the night too, where they get out to the lead, they answer back from the 1-0. They get the was it the Bolduc goal that made it 1-1? And then they never let up. And I know there were a few posts there, but they never let up.
Here's the fun part about this, right? So analytically speaking, they got caved towards the end of the third period, right? So we're talking about
2 shots. Yeah, that
was the second period.
Yeah.
So as you get into the third period, it looks very terrible, and yet you would assume that the relative team stat in this regard would be skewed to Detroit. There were 4 players yesterday that had that were above 50% in chances for.
Right.
Zachary Bolduc, Brendan Gallagher, Kirby Dach, Uri Slafkovsky. And the best defenseman, relative speaking, had almost a 10% relative chances for in favor of him, and that was Noah Dobson.
And you said Kirby Dach was in that too?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's crazy. Like, Dach, again, like, it's funny. The analytics versus you watch the game, and like 2/3 of that line is going well.
It's the line, right?
It's the line, exactly.
So those team stats, those kinds of statistics are when you're on the ice. I think Kirby Dach's analytics benefit from the fact that Zachary Bolduc and Brendan Gallagher were play drivers yesterday. Yeah. Whereas if you go and look at Wednesday's stats, Zachary Bolduc was analytically the worst player for the Montreal Canadiens.
You see what I'm saying?
5-on-5. So there is a little bit of give and take there. Noah Dobson, for example, was the best analytic player for the Montreal Canadiens against the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
And there were people that thought he was having a terrible game because of that back check. And yet you look at last night, he wasn't necessarily the best. He was one of them, but he looked like the most complete player on the ice, in my honest opinion. So that's the way that the cookie crumbles sometimes.
And that's the thing. Again, the Canadiens are playing home openers. Teams are amped. Teams are vibing, trying to put on a good show. And We'll see what Montreal does Saturday in Chicago. It'll be the Blackhawks home opener, and then they're back home to play Seattle. Yeah, it should be. And by the way, like while we're on the subject of analytics, apparently Connor Bedard has found another gear in terms of his explosiveness and his speed, exponentially faster than last year's version. So we'll see what that means. I want to put this up. I want to talk about Kirby Dach a bit. Thanks, Nestle, for the comment today.
Yeah,
don't forget you can join. You can join D'Amico and I from McLean's October 22nd. We'll be there live, a live show on October 22nd from 7 to 8. I do like the line combinations. I think people are in their rightful chairs at 5-on-5, and 2/3 of that line is going well in Zach Bolduc and Gallagher. Early impressions for Big 77 so far for you, because he hasn't been that noticeable to me. I'm curious what you've seen so far.
I mean, outside of faceoffs, I thought he's been fine. I think it's just the problem with Kirby Dach, and it's nothing new here. And I say problem, but after a 5-1 win, what are we really like? Is there really a problem? But it explains to why he gets caved in generally. I'm just looking for the stat in question here, but Kirby Dach had a 25% face-off ratio for the Montreal Canadiens last night. Alex Newhook 57. Jake Evans 64. Nick Suzuki 25. So not everybody doing too hot in that regard, but good for Jake Evans, I must say. Ironically, though, Juraj Slafkovsky 100%. Wait, the Canadians may have their big center, guys.
Yeah, finally at long last.
What I will say is, when you don't start the game with possession and you're chasing the play, then you're going to need wingers that are very good at puck recuperation, at forecheck, and at being able to win one-on-one battles for pucks. You could not have put any of two better wingers in that regard than Zachary Bolduc and Brendan Gallagher. So to me, I think that combo, even though we looked at it at the end of preseason, like what's going on here? Yeah, I would shudder at the idea of what that line would look like right now in terms of a chemistry perspective. I'm not hating on the player with Patrick Laine. I just don't feel like it would have the same oomph. So by putting a Brendan Gallagher there, stylistically, you better situation to perform. And I felt like last night that line could have had a couple more goals than what you saw already at 5-on-5, right? They were on the ice for 2 goals for. And I felt like they could have had a couple more, one of which was a Kirby Dach play. So I think part of it is confidence. Part of it is also Kent Hughes has said he's not at 100% yet, still finding his legs. So with that said, and knowing that he's not at 100%, for all intents and purposes, I thought it was more than adequate. It's just I would like to see a little bit more improvement in the face-off circle, because there was 2 games under 40%. Like that's just not a jive if you want to be a top 6 center in the NHL.
You know, we saw a lot of big dollars being thrown around the National Hockey League, already paying dividends. Jack Eichel with a couple of points, Kirill Kaprizov with 3 assists in the Wild big win. Obviously seeing what's happening with the Montreal Canadiens as it relates to Laine Hutson. I don't know if you caught any of this. For those that didn't, let me go over it quickly. Executive VP Jeff Gordon was on the RDS broadcast. RDS had their season debut last night with the great Pierre Hood and Mark Denis. There was Jeff Gordon talking about Laine Hutson, obviously the topic du jour around the Montreal Canadiens, because he hasn't been extended yet. And Gordon delivered a couple of good quotes, and I'm curious to get your reaction to it. Gordon saying that the team is entering a new era. The league is entering a new era with salary cap increases. Everybody's aware of that. Players are going to have bigger contracts and get a higher percentage of the cap. He doesn't believe that's surprising. And he also said this, quote, "We're not really talking about extension with Hutson and his camp. He is a big part of our team. We're confident it'll get sorted out in due course, but we're not in a rush because he's still under contract." Like, this is them. Hey, listen, we have leverage. You don't. You're going to march at our beat. That's my read on this. And I guess it reaffirms what we've been talking about and what's been reported, that they're clearly not talking and they're just going about their respective business right now.
How do I put it this way? Jeff Gordon is very good at what he does when it comes to the way he positions things. Okay.
Yeah.
What I will state is the following. The longer it goes where Laine Hutson isn't racking up the points on the power play, the longer it goes that this stays open, when we all know that the player wanted this done before the start of the season.
Yes.
You're only increasing the pressure by saying stuff like this on Laine Hutson's representation. And the reality is that Laine Hutson's representation tried to use the what's the word I would use here? Tried to use the urgency in the offer that the Canadiens made to their client, which included deferred money, which is off the table now.
Correct.
Basically as of Tuesday, I believe. And so there was urgency in that. And that's why when talks fell through, there was a little bit of frustration because the Canadiens felt that the offer was generous and gave Laine Hutson the money he was looking for. But Laine Hutson's camp felt like the structure and the philosophy behind it didn't necessarily fit with the priorities of their client's camp. So with that said, the longer this goes into the season, there are two things to keep in mind. If Laine Hutson's numbers don't basically improve from last season, or if they, for all intents and purposes, decrease in pace from last season, well, then slowly but surely that leverage starts to go away. And in the worst cases of scenarios, and I wish this in no way, shape, or form, but if even a minor injury occurs that starts limiting his play, or an injury that keeps him out for a couple of weeks limits his play, that leverage continues to go down and down and down. And this is the pressure about negotiating within or being, eligible for an extension when you know that there was adamant efforts done to try and negotiate something and get it done. They were so close to getting it done. They agreed on term. They agreed on AAV. Correct. They just did not agree on how it was structured.
For 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, they were aggressive. The Canadiens were very aggressive. To Marco's point, they were right there. And the other juicy bit I found from Jeff Gordon and his interview with Pierre Hood and Marc Denis on RDS was Jeff Gordon, as Marco put it, Gordon's a very, very sharp hockey guy, and he's fully aware of the market that he's employed in. And he referenced that, talking about how the Montreal market likes to talk about hockey, and the current topic is Hutson's contract, but mentioned, again, for us, his words, there is no panic. There is no panic, and there shouldn't be any panic, I think, from the fan perspective either about this.
Well, I mean, listen, so I will say this, and I will say this is to the fans. I don't want to come off as like me looking down on fans in any way, shape, or form. This is not it. This is more, I'm just trying to contextualize it. Fans reacting in panic to every single piece of information that is being leaked, and I don't think this is coming from the Canadiens, plays right into what they want when they leak that kind of information. So if you're hearing that the Laine Hutson's camp all of a sudden wants a 6-year deal, well, that's because they're using the 6-year number to try and make the 8-year number, which we know the Canadiens want, bigger. And
like Canadiens, you said about Luke Hughes, like Luke Hughes, but in Montreal now.
Well, that's it. Luke Hughes tried to use his family and the 5-year leverage to get a bigger 7-year payout. It's the same thing that's happening here. And the fact that the Canadiens seem unbothered and that all the information seems to be leaking from another side goes to show you that from a positional perspective of negotiation, the Canadiens are unbothered, because after the leverage of deferred money went away, what does Laine Hutson's camp have to negotiate? Well, there are clients on ice play. All the pressure is now on Laine Hutson
all day long. All day long.
And Laine Hutson, who wanted this done, obviously probably not the happiest camper right now. So this is what's going on right now. The Canadiens know that Laine Hutson does not have access to offer sheets, does not have access to arbitration, has one season to use to negotiate. And if that second season doesn't add up or doesn't look like or doesn't trend like what happened last year, because there is such thing as a sophomore jinx, the Canadiens begin to have more and more and more and more leverage. And at what point does Cortex turn around and call the Canadiens and be like, okay, let's get this settled? That's what's happening here. It's totally normal. And if this were happening in any other market, it would not be as out there as it is right now. Well, so I would not worry about it. They were very, very close. It's going to take one side to budge just a little bit, and I think it'll get done.
We'll see what happens. The Canadiens are in Chicago to play the Hawks before they're finally back home.
Ironic for a guy like Laine Hutson, who
totally
familiar with the Illinois and Michigan area.
Totally. So Chicago opened up with a 3-2 loss to the defending Stanley Cup champs. That was the first game of a brand new NHL season. Mm-hmm. And then they went to Boston and the Boston Bruins, Pasternak looking good. Bruins 4-3 overtime winners. So the Hawks will be looking for a little bit more compete, maybe a W. We'll see what type of test that provides. Marco and I will be here Sunday morning. Yep. Set your alarms for our Sunday live show in the aftermath of that game. And don't forget, set the notifications right now. October 22nd, live from McLean's, 1210 Peel Street in downtown Montreal. You're home away from home for the Montreal Canadiens, and we'll be there live. Can't wait to meet a whole bunch of y'all.
And we'll be drawing the tickets.
Yes,
we're talking about Section 112J. So these are really sweet tickets.
And McLean's buying the first round too, by the way.
Exactly. So that's like a $50 value right there. So we will be drawing them on the 22nd. There will be a live watch party as well at McLean's for the Calgary Flames game. There will be other prizes to be won as well, gift cards. We have Morella's to give away. We have gift cards at McLean's as well to give away. And we've already talked about the butter chicken pizza, but the chicken tendies are also. Dude,
I saw some of that in the comment section. They were wondering about the butter chicken pizza. And I'm like, no. That's the real deal, by the way. And
you took a pizza purist.
Correct.
And you made them like butter chicken pizza.
100%. A big shout out to our friends at Morella's too, as Marco mentioned. You can find their website online at morellassteakhouse.ca, Highway 132 in Ganawage. It's like 14 minutes door to door from downtown Montreal. They've noticed what Marco and I have been doing here, and they're like, how can we get involved? How about some gift certificates for your audience to give away? So we're going to be giving away Morella's gift cards so you can go enjoy an unbelievable high-end dining experience without the high-end price tag, Highway 132 in Ganawage. And you know what else? There's no tax on the bill there. Yeah, that's brings a little smile to my face personally. Prime Steaks, the best cigars in the business. I mean, if you like cigars, you like lounge areas, you like aged dry aged steaks, Morella's on Highway 132. Big fans of the show apparently, and we're big fans of them as well. So we're looking forward to us treating you at Morella's. That's the kind of people we are. Is that fair to say, Marco?
Yeah, I mean, I would invite fans over and make them large bowls of pasta if I could, but I don't know that I have the room.
Yeah, so we got gift cards. I mean, these guys are the best. We love them out there, and I think you're going to love them too, especially when we hook you up and you get a small little bill with no tax on it. Marco, enjoy your Friday. Enjoy the family, and don't forget, we'll be back here bright and early at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning in the aftermath of what I say is going to be, whoa, hold on. My man, D'Amico. I said the Canadiens were going to win 3-0 in Detroit. Marco goes, no, that's child's play. Habs win 5-1, says D'Amico. But he he got a little greedy. He went with the Cole Caulfield hat trick. So I bow down. I defer to you. I say the Habs win, but what do you got for me on Saturday? Let's go. Make it 2 for 2.
I think it's probably going to be 3-1 Canadiens. And I think we see Nick Suzuki's first goal of the season be the game winner.
I love it. And dinner's going to be on Marco because this guy just doesn't lose. And we'll see it. Thank you so much for all the comments today. Everybody enjoy your families. Enjoy Thanksgiving. And bookmark it October 22nd at 7 p.m. D'Amico and Starr live from McLean's 1210 Peel. For Marco D'Amico, I'm Sean Starr. Thanks to our sponsors, cheapesttshirts.ca, Little Bear at littlebearonline.com, and the best realtor in the business, it's Catherine with a K, catherineprince.ca. Marco, see you on Sunday.